Sunday, everybody. This is Columbus This Week. I'm Trevor, and I'm here with Eric, bringing you the latest news, events, and stories that impact you. So our first story is talk of Columbus all week.
All week?
Yeah.
Columbus This Week. Yeah.
And it's obviously the accident that happened at the state fair where the fireball broke down and 7 people were injured and one was
died.
killed.
Yeah.
18-year-old boy. Deadly accident throws passengers from ride at Ohio State Fair. And so basically, as I just said, what happened was the ride broke down, still currently under investigation by the ordered by the governor, no less. After the ride broke down, collapsed, and a bunch of people were injured and one was killed.
Yeah, I mean, not to start off this episode with some bad news. I mean, that's not always fun, but it is. It's a big deal. So on one hand, I'm glad that this is a big deal because that means we live in a pretty safe, good society when something like this happens, and that's a huge deal and it's all over the news.
Right. I mean, so at the end of the day, it's 1 dead, 5 critically injured, and 2 injured.
Yeah, I'm reading one dead, 7 injured. So it's from what I've seen, I mean, there's going to be an investigation that goes out. I actually have never really felt safe at any fair rides. So, but I think if you actually looked at the statistics, there's fairs going on all over the country, and this is a pretty freak occurrence.
Actually, that's not true.
Is that not true?
Okay, so this is going to blow your mind and scare the shit out of you.
Well, I don't ride the rides anyway because I don't feel safe, so there's that.
15 people are injured a day on fair rides in the
Really?
US. Yeah. And keep in mind that most of these happen in the summer or fall, so it's all going to be bunched up in this one time period. But yeah, 15 a day. I'll provide those stats and the links in the description of the podcast. But yeah, that's a crazy high number.
Yeah, so they do a very good job of making sure that I don't know that. But
yeah, it's not like you go into the fair and they're advertising, hey, there is a pretty good non-zero chance that you're going to get maimed here.
Yeah. Actually, so I got here's a good number. I got a good stat for you. There's they estimate that almost 31,000 people per year are injured on amusement park rides from this from the article in the Columbus Dispatch. So
yeah. Well, that's even tenfold higher than what I said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like 150 a day. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, big news. I think the rides are all the rides are back open now. It looks like.
So John Kasich made a big event out of this, and I don't blame him, right? Like a ride broke down in the middle of your state. That's kind of a your state problem.
Yeah, your state fair.
But I don't think they should have shut all the rides down. I think that was an overreaction. Like you can't just be. I mean, especially if it's like non-hazardous rides. I get it, right? So like. Pending an investigation, what if, somebody fucked up something bad? They could have fucked up something. I mean, something else could have been fucked up, but I don't think that's rational because these rides are set up fair to fair to fair.
Yeah.
And if something went wrong, like catastrophically wrong, it would have happened, I think, to all the... I mean, it would have happened somewhere else, or it would have happened to some other rides. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there was either some manufacturing problem with this particular ride, which is a single ride problem, or it was somebody set up the ride wrong, something wasn't, like, bolted properly, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which could have happened, but that's still a single ride problem, because all of these rides are, like, it takes, like, 5 people to set up, like, one ride, and it's not like they're going around. I mean, at least... I mean, I could be wrong for the state fair, but for county fairs... I mean, that's pretty much how it goes.
Yeah.
Because, like, also, this might scare you. Anyone can volunteer for the, like, ride setup shit at county fairs.
Yeah.
Because, like, I know because I was interested in doing it at one point. But, yeah, you can just be a ride setup person. Just go there and get paid way more than minimum wage.
Yeah.
It's highly seasonal, but, So, yeah, that's that story.
I've never, like I said, I've never felt safe at... Well, I don't even really enjoy carnival rides anyway because, like, for me, it's like, I want to ride, like, the biggest, baddest roller coasters, so, some kiddie ride, like the Fireball or something, that just makes me sick, and that's not even enjoyable at all, but, yeah, I've never really felt safe at any of the carnival rides anyway, and then I'm thinking about that, and it's like, yeah, so they just got some guy over here just setting up these rides.
Yeah.
I guess they're supposed to be inspected.
I literally could have set up that ride. It could have been me.
Yeah, I mean, you're just probably following an instruction manual, I guess, or I don't know. Maybe they don't. Maybe the guy or girl's setting him up. They just have it in their head. I don't even, who knows. So, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's a systematic.
The fact that like those rides are by and large set up by like unskilled manual labor that is strong hands is kind of worrisome. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess speaking of events, the Ohio State Fair is going on right now until August 6th. So that's next Saturday and Sunday.
Get out, go ride the rides.
Yeah, get out, go ride the rides. Hopefully, don't die. I just don't recommend riding the rides. They're not even that great. But then, what's the point of even going to the fair? Because I don't like fair food. So
I mean, no,
it's just hot and like there's just people everywhere and
the rides can be fun. I don't know how the lines are at the state fair. I imagine they're not great.
Yeah.
Like at the county fair, it's fun, right? But I mean, I would recommend going. It's a thrill. Just know what you're getting yourself into. Know there's a chance you die.
Yeah.
There's a chance you die when you go like
when you drive there or
bungee jumping or like skydiving or like scuba diving or like any kind of diving.
Right. Any sort of thing that involves moving your body in ways that it normally doesn't.
People wreck themselves playing tennis.
Yep. That's true.
But everything carries a risk. Just don't expect it to be a risk-free experience, I guess.
Right.
So go to the fair, ride the ride. What a great. We should. You know what? We should be the advertisers for the state fair.
Yeah. Go to the fair, ride the rides. You might die. That's great.
We're so convincing.
Yeah. So in all seriousness, no, it is pretty tragic that happened, but. Okay. Anyway, so speaking of events, the state fair is going on right now. There's some other cool stuff that's going on. The Wizard World Comic Con, so like the Columbus version of Comic Con, is going on at the Convention Center, and that's going to be August 4th through the 6th, which again is next weekend. So a week from now or a week from yesterday, one of those 2 days. So that's going on. That's at the Convention Center. There's another cool event going on. I think at least as cool as the Columbus Black International Film Festival, which showcases local, national, international African American films in theater and it's going to be at the Wexner Center for the Arts, I believe.
Yeah, and I think white people can even attend. So we've got that going for us.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, no, but did you hear that? I mean, that happened in France. There was a black film festival where.
Oh, and
then they got sued.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of resegregation. I think that's ridiculous, but
yeah, everyone's welcome to attend this.
Yeah. So, but that looks cool. I mean, I find that in terms of things like my favorite comedians, almost all of them are African American. They just have there's just a sense of humor that I think comes from.
I mean, who is generally considered best comic of all time?
I don't know.
How dare you? How dare you?
I don't know. Like Chris Rock or something?
Fuck you. Easily Richard Pryor.
Yeah, I'm not into comedy, so I don't know the comedians. I just know.
I mean, the three people you would always hear are like Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, but generally Richard.
George Carlin's my favorite of all time. But,
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So anyway, that looks like it'll be cool. I like film these kind of film festivals in general, whether they're African American or not or whatever they are. I kind of like them just because usually I don't really like movies, but the short films tend to they tend to be a little bit more interesting, and they have to get a lot more creative with small budgets and things like that and stuff, and they don't have all the Hollywood explosions,
right? And so it becomes, I think, more a medium of storytelling, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of the thing that I think separates the two. I'd say like most AAA movies are more what you'd call cinematographic, versus like most indie movies. Any indie movies, whether it's like a black film festival or not, like they're trying to tell a story, right?
Yeah.
Like that's all Sundance is about.
Yep. So that's going on. Bottoms Up Coffee and Franklinton's hosting. They host a board game night on. It's I guess it's weekly, so you can go this week or some other time. But the next one is going to be on August 4th from around 5:30 to 6:30. So that'll be cool. You can go get some good coffee and go check out Franklinton, and then play board games. Like, what's better than that? And then I think you mentioned earlier before we started the podcast that this upcoming, so it's a big weekend, I guess. It's like the tax-free shopping weekend.
Oh yeah, so next weekend, for all of you who are lucky enough to be in Ohio, which I assume is most of our listeners.
Well, you never know.
Most of our 8 listeners. Yeah. So if you're lucky enough to be in Ohio, there's a ton of stuff that's tax-free because it's like it's supposed to be like a way to reduce costs for people buying school supplies.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So like all stationery, pens, all that stuff is tax-free. Any clothing under $80 is tax-free.
Nice.
There's a huge amount of stuff, and even stuff you wouldn't normally like associate with back-to-school shopping that's tangentially related. Because like most clothing, like if you're buying like a $60 shirt, it's probably not for your kid. I mean, maybe it is, but probably not.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's I would look into it and see if you can get some stuff.
Get out there and spend some money
without paying the government their fair due.
Yeah. Cool. So those are the upcoming events that are worth. We can't fit every event into our little segment, so we kind of handpick some stuff that either we've gone to or we personally like. So. If you're listening and you're upset that your event didn't make it in, send us an angry message and we'll add it because we don't like to be threatened and we cower in fear when we're threatened. So,
by the way, if you actually do want to email us to threaten us or otherwise, please email Trevor@ColumbusThisWeek.com or Eric@ColumbusThisWeek.com.
Yeah. So cool. So those are the events. So switching gears, there's I was reading on earlier, I think Monday or Tuesday this week that the home prices in Columbus, or like I guess the central Ohio region actually, are record highs. I think that's crazy. In 1 year, the average home price went up 7% in central Ohio. Because you think like, oh, that only happens in San Francisco or New York or DC or whatever, and it's like, anywhere that's even remotely desirable to live in, home prices are just shooting through the roof. Like if I look at,
allow me to interject. So I think the really interesting part of this is one of the reasons this hasn't historically been the case in Columbus is because Columbus is not landlocked, right?
Right.
Because Columbus can expand north, south, east, and west.
Right.
So I do think it's interesting just from the perspective of we can expand out the suburbs. And yet we're not, right? People want to buy houses closer to the center of town.
Right. Yeah, and anecdotally, like, so I bought a place last year, bought a condo downtown, but anecdotally, like, I remember there was one place I wanted to look at. It was listed on Sunday and then sold on Tuesday for $10,000 over the asking price. And like, if you go to, so like Trevor and I, we go to, we go to forums and stuff like the Columbus subreddit and all that, and people are posting like, yeah, we offered $30,000 over the asking price for a $250,000 home and we didn't get it, because somebody else swooped in with the all cash offer that was $10,000 higher than even their offer. So anecdotally, I'm seeing some, I think we're seeing a crazy hot housing market, and the one thing. So I did read like a lot of people are thinking like, oh, we're in like another housing bubble, but there's some truth to that because the home prices are skyrocketing, and I don't think wages are really keeping up. But
yeah, so
it's still really hard to get a house. Like, a mortgage.
I think it's a two-pronged problem. First of all, there is a bubble. Like there are people who are denying that there's any sort of speculation, inflation going on, and I think that's just nonsense.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think that
we're not Vancouver, but that aspect does exist.
Right.
On the other hand, the demand is there. Like there's
especially in the hot areas like downtown, Grandview, Short North, Victorian Village, Sherman Village, all those places. It's like everybody's trying to move in closer to the city, or at least a lot of people are, especially as the jobs, like we talked about last week, a lot of the jobs and corporate headquarters are moving back downtown. So.
And of course you have two different groups vying for control of the same property. Yeah. You have millennials and retirees trying to get the same housing downtown.
Yeah, and then so here's the thing though, is so on one hand I am a little worried because when I look at the home prices in like downtown Columbus and stuff, like my girlfriend and I, like, we can comfortably afford where we live now, and it was like half the price of other stuff that I'm seeing. I just don't know who. I mean, I don't know who's higher, like demographic wise, who's higher paid than like software engineers or somewhere like that. At least with a large number of those people. I mean, yeah, there's some like cool, marketing gigs where you're making like $100K or something like that. But I just don't know, who can actually afford these properties. Like, what if you have maybe retirees, sure, because maybe they made it and stuff. But like if you're a millennial, I think a lot of people are setting themselves up to be house poor. Because, I mean, I just don't see how you could afford a $300,000 condo with a $500 a month HOA fee.
Well,
I just don't get it. I just don't know.
So there's an aspect of truth to that, but you have to remember, you and I both are probably very, very conservative when it comes to proportion of our income spent on housing.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've made fun of you for spending too much, but like you spend less than the average person.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think somebody, like the average software developer, like starting out their career can probably manage a $300,000 house.
Yeah, I mean, they're not saving for retirement or
no, even with that, right? Like maybe not like at 8% or something, but 5% to 401k. I think that's doable.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're necessarily setting themselves up to be house poor. Now, if you're like a teacher, starting out at 36K or whatever in Columbus City schools, that's kind of a different story.
Right. So anyway, I think it's pretty crazy. For me personally, like I'm looking forward to higher home prices because that means
you own a home.
Yeah. So that's good for me. I'd rather everybody be able to get housing that they want, but
and conversely, I'm hoping for the bubble to pop and your home value to go down.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always that conflict, right? That's just market interest. You're on one side, I'm on the other.
Yep. So another, not as related, I guess, but Trevor, did you hear that the original Max and Erma's in German Village is closing?
I did hear that the Max and Erma's is closing, and honestly, I have to say, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, it has some historic, because it's been there for like almost 50 years, so it's kind of cool because it's historic and stuff. But like, I think our generation, we just don't care about that kind of food.
Yeah, to me, this would be like somebody telling me the original Chili's or the original Denny's closed. It'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting because it's like a Columbus thing, but on the other hand, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean that's basically the only reason I mean it's just cool because it's old and it's like a Columbus restaurant, but I mean,
what if the original Wendy's closed?
I'm pretty sure it's where is the original Wendy's?
I think it's on campus.
On campus or on Sawmill?
I don't think it's on Sawmill. I thought it was on campus.
No, it was downtown.
Okay.
And it's closed. So, yeah. But I've been to Max and Erma's a ton of times. I've never been to the German Village one because there's just better food around there. Okay. So why would you go there?
So I didn't know it was closed, but allow me to like correct myself there. I think the oldest Wendy's that still exists is on campus.
Oh, okay. That would make sense too.
I think it's the one that's like North Campus.
Yeah.
All right. So next story.
Yeah. So moving on, I saw in the USA Today there's a good feel good story, and it's not just a feel good story. It's a good story. So Hot Chicken Takeover, which is a local hot chicken place here, and I haven't been there because I don't eat meat, so I can't vouch for the quality of the food. But they have an open. So they were featured in USA Today for their open hiring policy, which I think is fantastic because. I mean, people, especially people who, if you're a convict or if you maybe had a drug problem or something like that, like they're actually getting a shot at like having a job, which is one of the huge problems when people get out of jail. They can't get a job. What are they going to start doing?
Yeah,
like what else are you going to do? You just can't get a job. Like you can't even if you want to, you can't contribute to the workforce.
Yeah, I think it's arguably the biggest problem in the sort of rotating door prison issue that we have in the country. I actually had a professor who I was good friends with. He owns a little diner in New Concord, Ohio.
Yeah. Okay.
And he actually hired a felon, and he's by far the best the best guy who works for him. Right, puts in a ton of work, and I think a lot of times you get really good employees out of those guys because. Like they don't have many other options,
right?
And sometimes you just like some people just end up in shitty situations where they have no money and so they commit crimes, and they get thrown in jail, and now they're felons and they can't get a real job
Yeah,
ever again.
or
their lives are ruined.
There's a good I think it was Planet Money. There's a good podcast. So
chilling for other people again.
yeah. Well, hey, Planet Money's good. So and also Planet Money, if you listen to this, which you don't, but you know, you can give us some props. But so I was listening to Planet Money, and there was a guy who got caught up in an armed robbery, I guess. And I'm pretty sure the story was there was a gun in the car or something like that. So, you know, maybe he was up to no good, but what ended up happening was he got sent to jail, and they posted like a $500,000 bond, or maybe it was $50,000, one of the two. But either way, I mean, it might as well have been $50 million because it's unaffordable. Like, this guy and his family don't have.
Yeah, most people can't drop $50,000 on a bond.
So the guy's like the guy who got taken to jail. He ended up going to court and was found innocent and stuff. But he spent 6 months in jail, and it's like they were offering him a plea deal where it's like, hey, instead of going to court for this, like, just spend 6 months. We'll give you like a 6 months jail sentence and just plead guilty. And it's like, well, how ruined would that guy's life be if he took that plea deal? But then he ended up serving the time anyway. Like, how ridiculous is that?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
and then he would have had that on his criminal record, even though he was innocent and found innocent in court too. So he gets his life ruined because of 6 months in jail. So he loses his job, loses everything.
I think most people would agree that the judicial system is garbage, and like threat of being brought into the judicial system is like a punishment in and of itself, and that's an issue.
Yeah.
Right? Like, people will go through a lot of work to not end up going to court.
Yeah.
Which is a problem, right? You shouldn't be afraid of the court system if you're innocent.
Yeah. So, and then, so another thing that's kind of cool, so I saw that for Hot Chicken Takeover, 70% of their employees have had criminal records, so that's cool. That's good for them. So wanted to give and that's here in our community because this is a local business. So I wanted to give a shout out to that.
I will say this is one last bit. Even for companies that don't just flat out do not hire felons.
Yeah.
They lose a quarter of their stock. Places like Walmart, they lose a quarter of their stock to people stealing shit.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're running a bigger risk by hiring felons, right? Like, I don't understand what the sort of objection is. Maybe if it's like a security clearance job or that kind of thing, but
yeah, sure.
But for any of these minimum wage jobs, people being excluded because they have a felony on their record, it doesn't make any sense.
Right? Because those companies are basically hiring people who are going to steal from them anyway. So you're not losing anything except a hard worker.
Just from a market perspective, they have less opportunity. So they're probably willing to provide more for the same pay.
Right.
So turning them away is just bad business sense, I think.
Yeah. And then, okay, so switching gears again. So this is really cool, and my girlfriend and I have been thinking about renting our place out, and then maybe moving into the LeVeque Tower, which has been redeveloped. I think they're still doing some work, but they threw up a new bar called The Keep, which I've been meaning to go to that because that sounds super cool.
Hey, before you go on, could you explain to people what the LeVeque Tower is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the LeVeque Tower. So if you Google search it, it's LeVeque. So it's like the big pointy white building in downtown Columbus. So,
giant ass tower,
yeah.
Like bright shining tower on the sky in the Columbus skyline.
Yeah, it's easily the most noticeable building in the skyline. So, but anyway. So with the revival of the downtown, the urban core and all the good stuff going on in the downtown area, developers got in and said, hey, let's redo the LeVeque Tower. So they redid the hotel. They added condos to the very top, so the condos are anywhere from like $500,000 to like $1.3 million. So I'm not gonna ever be buying that. But they also threw in like 70 apartments. And they're actually for downtown, they're right around the normal rent range, so it's like anywhere from like $1,500 to like $3,000 a month, depending on obviously depending on the number of beds and all the normal stuff.
It is worth noting that all those apartments are gone though. Also, at this point.
No, not all of them. The apartments inside, no. So the condos aren't all sold either, but the apartments are like filling up, I guess. So
Okay. From what I read from today from the dispatch, they were pretty much all gone, but there's tons of condos still open.
Yeah, because they're freaking expensive.
Yeah,
so.
nobody has a casual $500,000 to drop on a small.
Yeah, at least not here in Columbus. But I think if you're living downtown, the rent range is right around what it should, what it would be for that. But I don't see if you're looking at the market, I looked at the pictures, and we'll post these that are in our story links. These places look fantastic. So, my girlfriend and I were talking about maybe renting out an apartment there, because how cool would that be to live in the LeVeque Tower and have this view of the skyline and all that stuff. But
same place in New York City, in Manhattan.
Oh my God, you'd be paying $100,000 a month or something.
No,
like that.
so I've actually looked. It's about 10.5. That's what you're looking at for Manhattan.
No, that's what I'm saying. For a rental rate.
Well, yeah, I was saying $10,500.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I would have thought.
I've taken a look on Zillow. Similar apartments are about a little over $10,000 a month for a 1-bedroom.
Yeah, but
for the
well, what's the equivalent though? So it would be getting a spot in the New World Trade Center. How much would that go for? Because that's the equivalent as far in terms of dominating the skyline.
I guess I was just talking a giant super building. So, in Columbus tech news, CODA drivers are worried about anonymous buses. The story comes from the dispatch. They went to go get a scoop. They talked to the bus drivers for CODA and sort of got their opinions on how they feel about us automating bus travel, since obviously that's one of the easier use cases for automatic drive or for autonomous driving. So
my first question is, do they also have a problem with the subway or Uber or walking? Because why wouldn't they have a problem with subway then? Because subway's just a big bus and there's just one driver.
Well, the subway's not putting them out of the job.
Not yet,
because it doesn't exist in Columbus. It's never going to put them out of the job.
Yeah, it never will exist in Columbus either, much to my dismay.
Light rail 2080.
Yeah, we need streetcars.
All right, so I'm gonna read you some quotes from.
Now, should I hold my?
Yeah.
Should I hold my applause, my rage until the end of all the quotes?
Yeah. I just want you to hear them all.
Okay.
These are real jobs. These are real people, said Andrew Jordan, president of the local 208 of the Transportation Workers Union.
Okay.
It's jobs lost. They want to know that CODA is investing in them rather than automation.
Okay.
If we're employing driverless vehicles, Stitt said, it's not anything that's right on the horizon.
Wrong. Okay.
Certainly, we'll need the folks who will provide the shop support, the IT support for these vehicles.
True.
We don't want bus drivers to be left out and left behind picking up the pieces.
True.
We're not against automation, Jordan said.
Lies.
We're against the lack of safety and jobs that take away a human being.
Lies.
The human being aspect.
Yeah.
So basically, so they basically reach out to union.
Yeah, it's like the taxi drivers being Uber's going to ruin everything, and it's you provide a shitty service, so of course.
If you reach out to union representatives, which is what the dispatch did, they're going to
give you the party line. That's
well, it's not even the party line. Their go-to. A union's go-to defense is they will always defend jobs, right?
Yeah, which I do like. I do like that.
They always want more jobs, never less jobs. It's always job numbers, right?
Yeah.
Which makes sense because typically the union gets paid, per person who's working, and more people working means more money coming in.
Right.
It's a very, very simple system.
Yeah. So, okay. So before I explode with rage and criticism. The bus drive. The one thing that they do have a point on, though, if you weren't a savvy reader, maybe you wouldn't have caught up on this. But when they talked about providing the IT support and all those things, so I think and this is probably going to be a larger problem going forward in the U.S. economy in general, but retraining. That's the thing. So if we do, let's say we automate all these buses, that's a good thing, because then it's instead of doing this stupid, lazy, bad job. The bus drivers do a great job. It's nothing about them, but you're sitting there driving a bus. There's no need to do that if we can automate it. Whereas maybe they can do more creative or more interesting work in IT or marketing for the buses or what have you. But we have to make sure that when we're disrupting these jobs, and this is somewhere where I think we failed coal miners, for example. When you're disrupting these jobs, you also have to try to. There has to be a transition. Like, you have to help the people who you're putting out of jobs if you can.
I will say though that doesn't help the unions one bit, because here's the problem.
Oh yeah, I don't care about the. I mean,
well,
I'm not anti-union, but I don't really care what the unions say. They're just. I think they're.
Well, I'm just saying there's a reason they bring that up as a negative. The transition to IT.
Yeah.
Because if you're in a union, and your job goes away, and like you get an IT job instead. Let's say you get retrained, right?
Yeah.
No one in IT is joining a union, right?
Right.
It's like just doesn't happen.
Right.
Like, how many union employees do you think like work as like software developers? How many software?
Probably zero. It's like, probably literally zero.
It's basically a unionless field. So, and IT is similar. I mean, and even mechanics, it's not that common for them to be for union shops to exist.
Oh yeah. I think they're like, I mean, you can just think like United Auto Workers for all the big companies, but basically like everything
I would say
manufacturing wise is a union.
Yeah, so
Honda's a rare exception, so I don't know if you know that, but like Honda, Marysville, East Liberty, all those plants, and so speaking of that, we'll talk about Honda here in a minute. But none of those. So the reason they're not is because they pay their employees well, and they give them great benefits and all that. But Honda is not at all a union, which is kind of. Oh, did you know that? So
yeah, I will say this might be a tangent, but it also might interest people, because I know the daughter of like a guy who ran a coal mine for 50 plus years.
Yeah,
and so it was a non-union shop. It's actually the case that union employees in coal mines got paid like about half of what non-union guys did.
Oh really?
Yeah, like you could bring in like. In like the 60s, like $30+ an hour doing coal mining work, non-union, and you get paid like 16 union.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess that difference has always existed too. Non-union work tends to be higher paid, and that's one of the reasons unionization is pretty hard unless your job's really shitty.
Yeah, I mean that's why you're not going to see software engineers. Unionizing, because you're gonna
throw away 40% of your pay.
Yeah, and I'm not anti-union. I think they serve a pretty valuable. They can, a lot of times they don't, but I think they can serve a pretty valuable body of power for workers to leverage for good things. I mean, unions kind of arose in because like there were huge problems with the workplace.
Can you give an example of like a modern good thing a union has done in like the last 5 years? Because I feel like anymore they're a net negative, right? Like
maybe. I mean, they may have outlived their purpose. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's mostly the case. Yeah. At least the way unions are set up in the U.S. right now, you either have to change union law, or I would say like they just do away with unions. They don't have a purpose. Because the thing is, the way union laws are written now, unions must be adversarial to the company by definition. I mean, that's just the case, right? Like the union and the company cannot, do not, will not, is illegal for them to work together.
Yeah.
And so there's this adversarial relationship which just doesn't work in most fields anymore.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe this is something where unions could step in eventually, but they probably won't, because in most institutions of power they just won't release their power until they die, instead of evolving. But the retraining thing's really that's what's really important. I feel like I guess kind of talking more about coal miners, like that's one of the areas where we failed. So like I was pro environment as anybody you'll find, but it's hard not to have sympathy for workers in places like Eastern Kentucky and West Virginia when all of a sudden out of nowhere. I mean, so on one hand, like they are getting. Coal is losing jobs because of like the solar and wind power revolutions and stuff, and like that's part of it. So it's kind of getting even from.
Another part of it is that you just can't mine coal in most places. Like, so you can effectively still mine coal in the what do you call it? Like the valley areas of the Rockies, but you can't do it in the Appalachian just because of the way regulations are.
Yeah. So. And yeah, exactly. So so it kind of goes to my point. So when you enact regulation and it's like overnight, all of a sudden people are starting to lose these jobs, and then you're just like, well, screw you. Like, sucks to be you. Like, we care about the environment. So I think the problem is doing something good, but then not taking care of the people who are negatively affected by that that good and right thing to do. And I think autonomous vehicles in general, not just the like buses and stuff like that's, you know, when all of a sudden we put all of our truck workers out of work, you know, which that's a pretty, for somebody with not a lot of education, that's a pretty high paying job. I mean, I think it's probably not that great of a job, but at least it's something they can do to make decent money, and they can even be entrepreneurial and have their own trucks and stuff. But when you automate something like that, all of a sudden you're just saying like, oh yeah, so we automated all this stuff. Like, hope you guys find something better to do. So we need, I think, as not just the city of Columbus, but as a country, probably even as a planet, like we got to figure out a way to make sure that when we're disrupting jobs overnight, that we find a good avenue for people to go find other work to do, and they're not just like left out to dry. So I do sympathize with the bus, the people who are driving the buses on that one point, which is a big point, but everything else they are just completely wrong.
Right, and I mean it's worth considering that this isn't necessarily the opinions of bus drivers. This is the opinions of the union.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the bus drivers largely agree with that, but
well, it depends. I mean, it depends on how flexible they think their skill set could be.
Right, and yeah, I don't know, but so I guess so. Really, this is kind of related. It's related to cars in general, and I was talking about Honda. So Tesla, they're finally going to start delivering the new Model 3s. So it's like $35,000, and then they have the so you pay $35,000, you get a range of 220 miles, and for like an extra $5,000, I guess they will throw in like the autonomous vehicle part of it. But let's just look at like just the $35,000 model. This is like a fantastic looking car. To me, it looks gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's electric. For $35,000, you know how much a fully loaded Honda Accord costs? It's $70 cheaper than a Tesla Model 3. I guess kind of related. So Honda's, I heard that Honda's moving their production for the Accords to the Marysville plant, which is kind of cool. But think about that. You could buy a fully electric Tesla, badass, super looking car for $35,000, or you could buy, and it's electric, or you could buy a fully loaded Honda Accord Touring Edition, which I mean is a nice car, it's cool and stuff, but like, you know, that's, to me, that's fantastic. Like I feel like I can actually afford an electric car right now, and it's not a stupid Nissan Leaf or whatever.
On the other hand, if I want to go to Myrtle Beach, which one do I want?
Well, see, that's the thing though. Like, so that's one of the, I think that's one of the things that. So I feel like people kind of get caught up in, well, what if this happens? So if that happens, then just take somebody else's car.
So I don't think it's a what if. I think most people in the U.S. make about anywhere from 1 to 2 trips a year.
Yeah, sure.
Where 220 miles would be insufficient.
Sure, but are you gonna? So you have 1 to 2 trips that you might make. So maybe next time you just fly, or maybe you just have somebody else drive.
I mean, flying is just not an option for a lot of people.
Yes, it's not even expensive to fly. It's like you could. I mean, if you're gonna fly, I mean, you can fly just about anywhere for like a couple $100. Well, let's say you want to go to Chicago, are you gonna drive or fly?
A lot of people are gonna drive.
Yes, which is dumb because it's gonna cost you more. Because you can fly to Chicago dirt cheap, and then where are you gonna park your car in Chicago? What about all the gas costs?
What happens when you're taking a family of 5?
Well, I mean, that's different. I mean, so then again, it kind of depends and stuff. So if you have a family of 5, then maybe you don't have 2 electric cars. I don't know. Or maybe you just don't take that trip. I don't know. Maybe you, I don't know, just save up and then just go somewhere better. I don't know.
I mean, so here's the thing. I mean,
plus, and that's not to mention the supercharging stations and stuff that they're putting along all the major highways.
I mean, even those are not really sufficient for the use case, right?
I mean, they are, because you're driving and then you just supercharge your car and then you just keep driving.
Well, instead of waiting like the 5 minutes it takes to pump gas, you're spending, what?
An hour? Who cares? It's like an hour. And like then now you instead of stopping to have to fill up on gas and then pay for gas, like you're just getting the supercharge. I guess for the Model S though, I think you do have to pay for using the stations, but I'm sure it's not. It's got to be cheaper than gas, otherwise people wouldn't do it. So
I mean, I'm just saying. I think I don't think you're thinking about a lot of use cases for.
No,
driving.
but what I'm saying is those use cases are dumb because 99% of your driving is done like to and from work or getting groceries or whatever. So yeah, if I can get an electric car for the same price as a Honda Accord, I'm going to get that because the vast majority of my time I'm not driving to Myrtle Beach.
Right, but that's true for you, but it's not true for everyone, right?
Well, not everybody's going to buy one, of course. I mean, I think actually a lot of people are going to buy this Model 3, but yeah, so apparently 500,000 people have already reserved one, so they sold 500,000 of them, which is not a lot in terms of like the big auto companies. Yeah. Like GM, I think, pumps out like 10 million cars a year or something crazy. But
I don't even think that's all that crazy. There are 300 million people in the U.S. plus.
Yeah, true. But yeah, I mean, but those are new cars, so you got people buying 10 million new cars every year.
Yeah, well, what that means is
that's just in the U.S. too, not to mention.
But that's like
everywhere.
But that's like 3% of the population gets a new car every year. I don't think that's insane.
Yeah, but it is kind of a big purchase though, because I mean, so we're not talking just like these aren't just $35,000 cars. People are buying like trucks, other luxury vehicles. I don't know. Like I think GM that would include stuff like Cadillacs, which sell for a lot of money.
Right, but my point is that means the average turnover on a car is about 33 years still. Well, I mean, so it can't just be GM, right? Like, I don't know how many cars are being sold total a year.
Yeah, well, I think GM's still number one. So if you're looking at America, that's 10 million. So I don't know, maybe you just double or triple that number.
Sure, let's double it. And the average turnover lifespan of a car is 17 years. I think that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know very many people that have kept a car for 17 years. The same car.
I've had it. Well, not the same car, but I mean, the way cars work is typically you buy. I mean, most people buy used cars that fit within their economic class. Most people don't buy new. Right. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, except the 20 million people a year that do. So that's still a lot of new.
Right, but the thing is,
I don't know. I still feel like that's a big number. Like if we just hypothetically just in the U.S. We have 350 million people probably, and 20 million people buy a brand new car every year.
Here's the other thing to consider.
Yeah.
Most people who buy new cars buy new cars.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is that there are people who buy a new car like every 3 years.
Yeah.
I know somebody who buys
Which is crazy.
I know somebody who buys a new car every 3 years, buys a new Lexus every 3 years. And so,
I think that's unless you have money to just throw away, I guess.
And so you have to take that into account. Most of the country is driving used cars regardless.
Yeah. But I don't know. To me, this just seems like a big number. But
I think this is a tangent anyway. So let's go on.
Yeah. Anyway, but I think it's cool. The Tesla. So back to the Model 3. I think it looks like a sweet car. I'm excited to see those around Columbus. We were talking before the podcast about one of the issues with electric cars is like a lot of people. So I think a lot of at least some segment of the demographic of people who would want to buy an electric car, like me for example. Like we live in the downtown area, and where am I going to plug this thing in? So like even though I have a reserved spot, like I can't just drag like a 200-foot freaking power extension cord from my kitchen, from my kitchen to my car. So that's that's something, so we talked about last podcast, like the Smart Cities initiative. So that's something I think that they're kind of they're trying to promote is getting more charging stations everywhere. But that's actually the biggest, aside from like just it'd be irresponsible. But that's the biggest thing that keeps me from buying an electric car right now. Is like I just don't live in a house, so I can't charge it.
Yeah.
So. But I am looking forward to seeing these bad boys on the road, especially since they're half the price of the Model S, which is unaffordable for me at least. So. Feature time.
All right.
Feature 30.
Do you want to give the headline?
Oh man, yeah. So I'll start with the major headline is Foxconn. So for the listeners who don't know, there's a company called Foxconn, and it's a Chinese company. They make massive amounts of electronics, like your iPhone, your Mac, your what have you, like your Windows PC, whatever.
It would be more specific, I think, to say they manufacture from circuit components if not the majority, the largest plurality of electronics in the world.
Yeah.
So they take base components and they create like the iPhone.
Right. So massive company with massive. So when you think like, oh, all the manufacturing is gone from the U.S., like the first kind of I think like the first thing you probably think is China. The second thing you should think is Foxconn, because I mean they're the embodiment of China making all the things. Which I'm not making a judgment call on that, at least here right now. But anyway, so with Trump coming in, there's been this this new
initiative.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think it started with him because it's been around for a couple years now. But there's a new initiative to like bring manufacturing back to the U.S. I there was definitely rumblings for that during Obama.
I definitely think that there's been a huge cultural shift, right? No one can deny that was Trump's campaign.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was. I'm just saying it didn't start. Definitely didn't start with him. It's been around for a while, and then he kind of actually ran with it, unlike Hillary, which is why part of the reason she didn't get elected. I mean, all you have to do is look at the state demographics. She lost Ohio, Wisconsin. She lost Pennsylvania too, didn't she?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, if I remember. I mean, hello. And Michigan, like hello.
Actually, let me check that. But yeah, go ahead. Keep talking.
Yeah, so you can check it. So anyway, long background story aside, Foxconn's building a plant in Wisconsin. So there was, Ohio was one of the states that they were looking at. So they were looking at, I think, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, some of the usual suspects here. And then Wisconsin's giving them like $3 billion in tax incentives to create 3,000 jobs.
Well,
to start with.
Yeah. So not only that, I think the more interesting part of this story is Ohio actually put in a higher bid. We put in about $4 billion worth of tax revenue, deferment incentives, etc., and we got turned down for the $3 billion offer.
No, I don't really get that because Ohio is way cooler than Wisconsin.
I actually, sorry, I want to read the quote from.
So while you're finding that quote, I guess, but don't if you're thinking, oh man, Ohio lost out to this factory, don't despair too much, because Ohio is still in the running for one of many Foxconn factories. Which I overall I think is a positive thing to bring manufacturing jobs back to the U.S. because you need to be able to build stuff, and if you don't know how to build stuff, then you're kind of at the mercy of people who can build stuff.
All right. When Wisconsin economic officials were asked why they thought Wisconsin was able to beat out the higher bid from Ohio, they said their prowess in attracting new employers to the Badger State was able to carry the day.
Yeah, that's nonsense. I don't know why Foxconn picked Wisconsin, but that is definitely not the reason.
Are you sure Wisconsin doesn't have the most legendary economists on the planet? Planet?
Wisconsin is just a normal, boring state. So, but okay. So here's the big story though, and this applies to Ohio as well. If we end up with a Foxconn plant, so all these manufacturing jobs, the thing that happens is the state gives tax incentives to build the facility.
Yeah, huge tax incentives, like
$3 or $4 billion. And then what's interesting though, for these actual sustained jobs, is that it ends up. So it depends on how you look at taxes. I don't know if I look at it this way, but it kind of ends up costing the state. Like they're paying $230,000 a job.
Yeah, so
in incentives to bring the manufacturing facility to Wisconsin.
Yeah, and so if I can make a point on that, let's round it up to 240 just to make numbers easy.
Yeah.
So the average manufacturing job, at least where I'm from, is around $40K a year, right? That's pretty decent wage, especially for rural America, which is where Foxconn is going to put plant.
Yeah.
So divide 240 by 40, and you get about 6 years worth of
incentives.
Well, worth of free employment per employee.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, that's huge, right? You're basically taking Foxconn's biggest operating cost and you're making it $0 for 6 years.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. So it's such a weird thing because, like in the States, and the companies do this all the time, but the interesting part is after the 6 years, what if Foxconn's just like, yeah, we're just going to pack up and leave? Some of their states says, hey, if you come here, we'll give you $4 billion. Or what have you. So how do you keep? I mean, granted, they do. It's kind of a chicken. You're kind of playing a game of chicken here with who's going to blink first. But what's the incentive after they've invested? They ran out of the tax incentive to stay.
So I don't think that tends to happen because the reason that they have to incentivize and draw them there in the first place is that there are huge sunk costs that go into building a warehouse.
Yeah, I'm looking. It's like $10 billion. So
that's
true.
So they have to sink that into the ground just in order just to make their first dollar.
Yeah.
So when you look at it from that perspective, it makes more sense, but it's still a crazy amount of money.
Yeah. I do think that we will end up seeing a. I do think we'll end up seeing a facility in the Central Ohio region though. There's a lot of people. This might be intuitive if you're kind of into Columbus, but and this is I guess a tiny bit of a tangent, but Columbus is within 8 hours of 70% of the population of the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah,
or
something like that. 2/3.
So Columbus is a natural logistics hub.
Yeah.
For at least the entire East Coast, but a lot of the country just in general.
Yeah.
So we'll see a Fox if they're serious about building these plants. We'll see a Foxconn plant in not in downtown Columbus, obviously, but we'll see one here. Incentives obviously are still going to be offered, but that's going to happen here.
Yeah, it's a huge logistics hub in Columbus.
Yeah.
You look at Amazon and they're plopping a factory down here. You look at the USPS. Anyone who ships things, I'm sure UPS as well.
FedEx, UPS, USPS.
Oh, right. I forgot FedEx has a big HQ here in Columbus. But the reason they do that is just because you have it's the same reason that as sad as it is to say, it's one of the big reasons we have a heroin problem, because all kinds of traffic and transport goes through Columbus, going east, south, north, and west. We have major cities in every direction to us.
I do have an inline correction. So I said that Foxconn was Chinese. Depending on who you are, that's still true, but they're based in Taiwan. So
I knew that, but I wasn't going to make that political distinction.
It doesn't really matter. At least it doesn't matter to me.
They are Chinese, but they are People's Republic. That kind of.
So, just in case you were listening and you're like, oh, that's from Taiwan, I just want to be, I guess, correct. They are based in Taiwan. It's Chinese, depending on who you ask. So.
Yeah.
But, I think it's cool. The real interesting thing, though, here is, so, I think for the larger part of, this feature, maybe the larger discussion is bringing in, how much money it costs to bring in jobs to the Western world. In the United States, people are working in Taiwan or China or either one for next to nothing compared to what they have to pay American workers. So look how we have to offer $3 to $4 billion in tax incentives to build a factory to employ 10,000 people or 3,000 people. That's it, just 3,000 people, and they have to basically cough up $3 or $4 billion to get somebody to build a manufacturing facility there. And then on top of that, the wages for those people are far higher than they are in China or Taiwan or wherever. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing, that it costs so much money, and it's so cost inefficient when you have cheap labor in places like China to build those facilities here in the U.S. It's it's basically all politics, because it doesn't make any economic sense.
Yeah.
I guess it has to at some level, because otherwise they wouldn't do it, but. Largely, it just doesn't make any sense. Other than, I guess the United States. So one of the things Trump was talking about was doing tariffs and stuff. So I don't know if that's a good idea, but that's basically that's the last straw. That's the only thing they got, is to enact tariffs and then make people actually make stuff here.
Well, the thing is, how do you keep the proletariat from overthrowing your government?
Yeah. So
people need their bread, Eric.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't know.
That's why it's done at such great cost. It's not because those jobs are particularly valuable, but you have to have most of the country being employed. You can't just not have you can't have a quarter of the country be unemployed. That's just not acceptable. You will
every here in Spain it's acceptable.
What I'm saying is every sitting politician will lose. And also look what's happening in Spain. Right. Spain's looking at a radical shift to the right among their youth.
Yeah.
That's not a normal thing.
Yeah, and it's not going to be long before. There's still the rumblings going on with Barcelona and the Catalonian region breaking away, I think that's going to happen. So we'll see about that, though. But
I mean, I think it's looking. I think you'll have to see what Scotland does, right? Because if Scotland is able to secure a deal where they're able to, rejoin the EU while not being a part of the UK, then Catalonia's gone. Scotland's gone.
Well, Scotland would have to actually leave first, but.
Oh, if Scotland can get that deal, they're gone. Like, they'll have another referendum. That'll pass. I would guarantee you. I would bet you a significant amount of money, like four
like $5.
No, like 4-digit type numbers.
Yeah,
like that is a really safe bet.
Yeah,
but I mean the non-safe bet is obviously whether or not they'll give it to them, because I mean the person blocking that in the EU right now is Spain, because Spain doesn't want to lose Catalonia.
Yeah,
that's the whole rub.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge tangent, but. I'm a big fan of the more local the government, the better, I think. But yeah. Anyway, so interesting stuff going on this week. I mean, we went from everything from fair rides to autonomous vehicles to apartments to housing costs to talking about our feature here with the plant. I think it's been a pretty good. That's been a pretty good discussion for today. So I think I'm tired. I'm done. It's been a long weekend for me. So I think we should call that a wrap. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Cool.
We've talked about all the major stuff.
Yeah. So send us some hate mail, preferably.
Yeah, please.
All of our friends tell us it's great, but
please direct all the hate mail to Eric at ColumbusThisWeek.com.
Yeah, I check that email so regularly.
If you have any positive feedback, please send it to Trevor at ColumbusThisWeek.com.
Yeah, I think you should put that in the description. All right, so this is all right. So that's a wrap for today. This has been Columbus This Week. We hope you've had a great week. I hope this next week is good too, and we'll see you guys next Sunday.